Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Jury's World. Today I am going to explain you the chapter Mother's Day, written by J.B. Priestley. This is a play where the writer humorous portrayal of the status of a woman in a family. So in this play we have seen the time is the present and characters are like Mrs. Annie Pearson, George Pearson, Doris Pearson, Carol Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald. And the action takes place in the living room of Pearson's house in a London suburb. So both the lady are sitting in front of them. Both the lady means Mrs. Annie Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald. As from the very name, we'll have to say Mother's Day. What is Mother's Day? What is the use of Mother's Day? Before going to say this, we can say that drama play is a good medium for conveying a social message. In this play also we'll get a message, and the celebration of Mother's Day, as you know from the very name we come know, what is Mother's Day? It's an occasion which is celebrated in various parts of the world to express respect, honor and love towards mother, and it is priceless in terms of her countless love, dedication and devotion towards her family. And Mother's Day is celebrated across 46 countries of the world and is really truly a special day for a mother who was mostly underrated in this male dominated society. And it is the second Sunday of May was officially designated as Mother's Day in USA. And from 1914, like USA, like other countries like India, Pakistan, Italy, Singapore, Belgium, and lot more countries started celebrating this day. But what do you think? Is it sufficient to celebrate a specific day as a Mother's Day only? Actually, in my view, Mother's Day should be celebrated every day because they are the backbone, the pillar of our family, our strength and our love. So, in this play, we'll get how Mrs. Pearson's family react when she tries to stand up for her own rights. As in the story, in the play, we'll get J.B. Priestley described Mother's Day, the plight of a mother of her own family, and her husband, her children treat her like a servant. And Mrs. Pearson is such a lady. Her next door neighbor, Mrs. Fitzgerald, helps her, and she transforms a timid and weak woman into a mistress and boss of her family. And Mrs. Pearson sets her spoiled children, Doris and Cyril, and her pompous husband, George, right. So, Mrs. Pearson, how she is? She is a pleasant but worried looking woman in her 40s, and Mrs. Fitzgerald is older and heavier and a strong and sinister personality. And in the scene, we have seen both are sitting, and Mrs. Fitzgerald is smoking also. And both, it is very important that these two should have sharply contrasting voices. Mrs. Pearson speaking in a light, flirty sort of tone and with a touch of suburban cockney perhaps, and Mrs. Fitzgerald with a deep voice, red iris perhaps. So, in display, we'll come to know it is afternoon time and Mrs. Pearson is sitting with Mrs. Fitzgerald in her living room. Mrs. Pearson is a pleasant but worried looking woman in her 40s actually. But Fitzgerald, as we know, that she's older and heavier and stronger personality. They have sharply contrasting voices also. Mrs. Pearson speaks in a light but Mrs. Fitzgerald with a deep voice. And Mrs. Fitzgerald and has been telling Mrs. Pearson's fortune. She learned this art from the East where her husband had served in the army. So Mrs. Fitzgerald asks Mrs. Pearson to put her foot down on once and for all, and she should be the mistress of her own house. She must be the boss of her family. She turns after them all the time. She takes their orders as if she were their servant in the house. In this way, she is running herself and the family, and Mrs. Pearson's husband and her children should take notice of her. And Mrs. Pearson is timid. She keeps making her mind to deal with them. She can't muster enough courage also. So, Mrs. Fitzgerald tells Mrs. Pearson that she will set her family right and only they will have to change their personalities. She asks Mrs. Pearsons to give her hand and keep quiet for a minute. They stare at each other, muttering, Astatat dam, Astatat. Their personalities change bodies. So now Mrs. Pearson become bold and dominating, and Mrs. Fitzgerald is nervous and timid. This is easier changing back. They can exchange their personalities at will. Doris is Mrs. Pearson's daughter. She comes and asks her mother to iron her yellow shirt. She has to wear it tonight, and Mrs. Pearson does not answer, but keeps on smoking. Doris is astounded. She can't believe her eyes. Then she asks for tea, and Mrs. Pearson replies that it is not ready. Doris became angry and she again insists on having her shirt ironed. Mrs. Pearson reacts strongly. She scolds Doris. She puts in twice the hours Doris put and get no wages and thanks for it. She even turns her daughter for choosing a buck-teeth half-witted boyfriend. Doris is nearly in tears. So, after her daughter, Mrs. Pearson's daughter's Doris, now comes the turn for Cyril. Cyril, Mrs. Pearson's son. He asks if tea is ready and no answer Mrs. Pearson. Cyril asks if she is feeling off color. Then she asks his mother if she has put his things out, and Mrs. Pearson ignores him and she asks for some stout. Doris and Cyril are shocked to see their mother smoking and drinking. They are surprised at the sudden change that has come in their mother. They think that perhaps she has gone Burmese. But Mrs. Pearson advocates equal work for all. She wants a 40-hour week for all. She refuses to work even an hour more. After her son and daughter, finally comes Mr. George Pearson's. He is surprised to find her drinking stopped. Mrs. Pearson replies that she likes drinking for a change. And Mrs. Pearson makes a mockery of her husband also. He's one of their standing jokes at the club. They all call him Pompey Pearson. But they think he is so slow and pompous. She told him that they always laugh at him and behind his back. They call him names. She warns him that if he stout as her, she will slap his big fat silly face. George exits slowly, almost as if somebody has hit him over the head. And actually, by nature, Mrs. Pearson is a worried, timid person, isn't it? So she can't bear anymore. Actually, Mrs. Pearson requests Mrs. Fitzgerald that they must change back immediately. The drama has gone far enough. She can't see her husband and children being so miserable. Again, Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald muttered as before, and they come back to their original personalities. Mrs. Parsons became real, and Mrs. Pearson again. Mrs. Fitzgerald asked Mrs. Pearson that she should not be soft again. If she does not firm up, everything will go waste. She should not give any explanation or apologize for what she has done. So, after that incident, George, Doris, and Cyril file in through the door. They look anxiously at Mrs. Pearson's. Mrs. Pearson smiles. They smile back at her, and she declares that they will have a nice family game of rummy. Then the children will get the supper ready, and while she has a talk with her father, George is relaxed. It suits him. Cyril says that it is all right, and Doris hesitates, but Mrs. Pearson reacts sharply. She also gives in and hastily gives her consent. So, usually, when Mrs. Pearson take her stand, her family members, her husband, her son, and her daughter, is bound to transform themselves, and they she become Mrs. Pearson become transformed as a from a timid and weak woman into a mistress and boss of her family. So does Mrs. Pearson sells her spoiled children, Doris and Cyril, and her pompous husband George, right? So this is the story about all about Mother's Day. Hope you have understand the drama, what is in it, how uh, this play as drama is a good medium for conveying a social message. And in this case, J.B. Presley is rightly successful. Mrs. Pearson is able to change her family, change her behaves towards her, and she became a good personality. And they also transformed themselves because of her. Hope you have understood the chapter, the play. If you like my video, do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.